What's up guys, my name is Timbo, and I know, 2 Destiny videos in a row, I'm just as surprised as you are. I've been working on some other projects simultaneously that have been taking up a lot of time, so I thought I would throw this video in between to make sure I don't go too much longer than a week or so without uploading. Back in the summer, I made a video about exotic weapons from Destiny 1 that have not been implemented into Destiny 2. You can probably tell by the title, but obviously, I'm now doing the same thing, just with armor pieces this time. Destiny has gone through so many changes over the years and have added an insane amount of gear, so this will certainly be a daunting task. Unlike most exotic weapons, there's armor for Titans, Warlocks, and Hunters, and many of them are tailored towards specific activities such as the Crucible, Strikes, or the Raid. And speaking of Raid, comes today's video sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. I know, Timbo, that was such an incredible segue. How does he do it? Raid Shadow Legends, I'm sure you've already heard about this game around 15.2 million times. But why is that? Raid Shadow Legends is one of the games I've been playing lately. Typically when I play mobile games, it's just when I'm on the go, but Raid has been taking up a lot of my time. It's incredibly addicting, and apparently lots of you guys think so too. The game is insanely popular with millions of downloads worldwide and thousands of positive reviews. If you're not aware, Raid is an epic fantasy turn-based game with over 400 champions for you to collect and customize. Raid Shadow Legends has a ton of different activities you can do, making it a game with something for everyone to enjoy, such as a fully voiced story campaign, raiding with friends in a clan, and even some PvP. And I know what you're thinking, Timbo, with all that content, this game probably cost me at least 30 bones. But Raid is available to download and play for free right now. And for the first time, you can play Raid Shadow Legends on your desktop too. The game is also cross-platform, which is something I really like and appreciate, as I can switch between devices under the same user whenever I want. Just like on mobile, the PC version runs exceptionally well with a smooth frame rate and 3D graphics. Luckily for you guys, I've made getting started especially easy, as all you need to do is follow the top link provided in the description. Doing so will grant you 100,000 silver and the champion slasher right off the bat. And like I said, you can do so by following the link in the description of this video and going to your inbox, which is marked on the screen. The promotion lasts for 30 days, so make sure to get started now so you don't miss out. Thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. And without further ado, let's get back into the rest of the video. As I stated before, there's a lot of armor pieces in Destiny. If I forget one, I apologize in advance. I know it won't stop about 2,000 of you from correcting me in the comment section, but please remember, I'm just a boy. These armor pieces aren't in Destiny 2 for different reasons. Some might return in time and others will be negated for eternity because reasons. So there's the possibility that this list may become outdated one day, but as of February 2020, here are the Destiny 1 exotic armor pieces not in Destiny 2. Being a hunter main, I typically give Titans and Warlocks the shaft most of the time, so in this video I figured I'd let them go first, so we can save the best for last. You know what I'm saying? According to my count, all 3 classes have 9 armor pieces that have not moved forward yet. Kicking it off with the Titans is a very popular exotic and one of my favorites, Ruin Wings. Ruin Wings granted the ability to receive increased heavy ammo drops and granted more heavy ammo in each drop. Ruin Wings will probably never come back into Destiny because a neutered down version of that perk can come on a number of legendary armor pieces. These were used all the time in Strikes and in the Raid, or in the Crucible if you just forgot to take them off or you're just weird. They can be pretty inconsistent at times, but were overall pretty top tier. Next up are no backup plans. These are going in no particular order, by the way. I remember no backup plans sucking when they first came out. They did get buffed a few times and got slightly better, but the intrinsic perk was just really specific. It granted force barrier with an increased duration, which was basically an overshield, and that triggered on shotgun kills. After that is another popular exotic, mainly around the time of the Dark Below if I remember correctly, the Glass House. The Glass House allowed Blessing and Weapons of Light to last longer, which was pretty powerful when the strat for literally everything was to blast Galahorn up the boss's butthole. The Glass House fell into a pretty common problem you see within Destiny. Things like Weapons of Light or Well of Radiance run into a lot of problems because there are so many variables to consider with which perk should be able to stack with which other buffs and what buffs apply to other buffs, and it just gets really complicated and difficult to balance really quickly. Either way, this is pretty good for a time and you'll probably never see it again. Empyrean Bellicose turned Titans into Warlocks, essentially allowing them to float mid-air when aiming weapons down the sights. I don't have too much to say about this one. It was cool, I guess. It's just one of those gimmicky exotics that are fun but aren't really warranted to be used in high level activities. One of my personal favorites, not really for the perk, just for the look, was the Helm of Inmost Light. It granted Death from Above and Headstrong for Fist of Havoc, which I don't play Titan very often, but I'm pretty sure is still part of one of the skill trees. This doesn't exist in Destiny 2 and may never come back, but there is an exotic in the same family, that being the Heart of Inmost Light, which isn't nearly as cool if you ask me, but it's still something. A Taken King exotic that was used pretty often is next, Immolation Fists. Similar to Helm of Inmost Light, Immolation Fists granted some extra perks in the Sunbreaker tree at no extra cost. These gauntlets were good for Titan builds that wanted to just burn and explode every single enemy in sight. They were pretty cool, but changes to the game subclasses like many of these may be why you never see them make a return. Another Destiny 1 Titan exotic is the Thagomizers. The Thagomizers just granted Amplify for Striker Titans, which was a perk that reduced the cooldown of your super after getting melee kills. These things, not too much to say about them, they don't really do much. Possibly the most ridiculous looking exotic is next, the Taikonaut, or the Poor Man's Rune Wings. The Taikonaut came out with a lot of perks, okay? It gave all rocket launchers tracking, which was good, but then again, all the good rocket launchers, aka Gjallarhorn, already had tracking. The radar remained visible while aiming down heavy weapons, which is kind of pointless if the perk revolves around rocket launchers, because most of the time when you're using a rocket launcher, you know what you're shooting at. And finally, heavy ammo dropped more often. It didn't work as well as it did with Ruin Wings, but it did do something, hence the Poor Man's Ruin Wings. And finally, for the Titans was one of the coolest, yet most controversial exotics in Destiny 1, Twilight Garrison. The Twilight Garrison allowed Titans to dodge in midair multiple times, basically making them faster than Hunters and more nimble than Warlocks. Twilight Garrison was incredibly fun to use, and many awesome clips in PvP were created because of this exotic, but it completely broke the movement system within Destiny, and that's probably why this one is gonna be left behind, like forever. Next up are the Warlocks and their forgotten by Bungie exotic armor pieces, starting with Heart of the Praxic Fire. This obviously isn't in Destiny anymore because it reduced all ability cooldowns while Radiance was active. Radiance isn't a thing anymore, so this exotic probably won't be either. Light Beyond Nemesis is a Heart of the Pack exotic from Destiny 1 that allowed revives to go faster and allowed for more orbs to be created. It wasn't the best exotic in the world, but there wasn't a ton of great Warlock exotics anyway, at least for certain activities at a certain period of time, so this one was used quite a bit, probably due in part because it looks so dang cool. One really good exotic from Destiny 1 was Nothing Manacles. Nothing Manacles gave scatter grenades for Voidwalkers tracking as well as an extra scatter grenade charge, which doesn't sound amazing, but it became so OP. Sure, you could kill yourself with scatter grenades, if you're me, more often than other people, but some of the Voidwalker builds you could make with these things made it all the worth it. These are awesome. Another good Voidwalker armor piece was Obsidian Mind, which allowed Nova Bomb kills to reduce the cooldown of your next Nova Bomb. Sure, that makes sense. There are other exotics in Destiny 2 that do the same thing like this, just not for Voidwalkers anymore, which is a shame because there are few things more satisfying than killing a bunch of enemies with your Nova Bomb and immediately getting another Nova Bomb. Coming back down to Earth for a short time is Purifier Robes, which isn't going to come back for obvious reasons. Purifier Robes would disorient enemies within a certain radius when you activated Radiance from Death. All are things you can't do anymore. This exotic was good to avoid the classic shotgun beatdown in something like Trials, but there were better options most of the time. The Ram was an incredibly popular Warlock helm in Destiny 1, despite only granting increased armor and triggering lifesteal on melee hits. Using the Ram disallowed Warlocks to survive certain situations they would otherwise die in, as well as granting them the ability to steal life from enemies on melee hits. Pretty much any exotic that made Warlocks harder to kill was used like all the time. Another Warlock piece that I used to use a lot, but apparently Bungie didn't like, was Void Fang Vestments. They let you spawn in with grenade energy and made your Axion bolt more powerful with an extra seeker. They were an overall very solid PvP chess piece, and even though I don't really use anything other than Hunter anymore, I wouldn't mind seeing some variation of this return. Up next was something used in strikes primarily by poor people, that being Alchemist's Raiment. It gave players Glimmer when they picked up primary ammo, which I think enemies just drop Glimmer now? I don't even know. As well as more grenade and melee energy when you pick up orbs while your super is full. So it was useful for that purpose, but pretty much did nothing else. With the Glimmer cap being like a million times higher than it used to be, and also what I said before about you just getting Glimmer when you kill enemies just in general now. Ether seeds and all those things they don't exist anymore, so there's not really too much of a point to this anymore. And wrapping up the list for the Warlocks is the Impossible Machines. These gauntlets granted the perk Landfall for free, which created a shockwave of lightning underneath you when you activated Storm Trance. And now finally are the 9 Hunter exotics, starting with the Arachnid. The Arachnid was made for people who forgot to put their glasses on before playing the game, basically working as a magnifying glass for your golden gun and zooming it in like it's some freaking sniper rifle. It also allowed your golden gun to last longer, but was overall pretty meh exotic piece. Keeping with the spider theme was the Tarantella. The Tarantella was better than the Arachnid, but was still best in pretty specific situations. It made your super and grenades charge faster and decrease damage taken from arc sources. This would be helpful in arc burn nightfalls, for example, but in most high level activities, it was better to use Gunslinger or Night Stalker. So it was good for what it did, but the scenario it thrives in doesn't happen very often. Next up is my favorite helm of all time, that being the Acleophage Symbiote. This helm got kinda nerfed eventually, but back at the beginning of Destiny, this was my go-to gunslinger exotic. It granted an extra golden gun shot, so unfortunately, this will probably never return, seeing that we have skill trees that give golden gun like 6 shots. But I also loved it just for the aesthetics, which played and still plays a big role in the gear pieces that I choose. After this is the Bones of Ao. Bones of Ao aren't really relevant anymore either, as there are other perks and exotics that do roughly the same thing, but basically they added an extra jump. So you could jump 4 times instead of 3, or you could add a 3rd jump to some of the other higher or more powerful hunter jumps. They were fun and good for jumping puzzles in the raid, but nothing more than that. The Crest of Alpha Lupi was one of the 3 exotics that all essentially did the same thing. One of them kind of came back for the Titans, but the other 2 were left behind. The perk allowed for additional orbs, but many, especially in the PvP world, called these exotics quick res, because that's pretty much what most people use them for. Another pair of mediocre gauntlets that will most likely forever be kept in Destiny 1 is Don't Touch Me. Other than the great name, the Don't Touch Me were used to turn you invisible. Wow, that sounds so weird when I say it in a sense. It turns you invisible after getting hit with a melee attack. These were extremely useful, but only in one activity, mainly being solely created for soloing the first encounter in the Crota's End raid. Other than that, they didn't serve much of a purpose. One of the few hunter helmets that haven't been moved forward is the Mask of the Third Man. Mask of the Third Man was the first exotic I ever got in Destiny, and just made Arc Blade use less energy. Seeing that Arc Blade is now Arc Strider means that this really doesn't have a point to exist anymore. A funny but otherwise pointless exotic were the Radiant Dance Machines. You might be seeing a trend at the moment as to why some of these aren't in Destiny 2. They would need to either be reworked a lot, or they've just been replaced in some way, or have just lost all reason for existing. The Radiant Dance Machines just allowed you to move more quickly while aiming down the sights of your weapon. That can be good, but it's definitely not as helpful as a lot of other options in most scenarios. And finally for the hunters is Skyburner's Annex. Skyburner's Annex had a pretty interesting perk, that being heavy weapon kills has a chance to create orbs, and then orbs collected with a full super have a chance to grant special ammo. So again, a kind of cool gameplay loop that can be created, but not as good as some of the best exotic pieces. And that is going to wrap up our list of all of the Destiny 1 exotic armor pieces not in Destiny 2 yet, or potentially ever. I know a lot of them would have to get reworked or are irrelevant or have already been replaced by a perk or skill tree ability, but if you could bring back any of these from the list, which one would you choose? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leaving me a positive rating would be greatly appreciated. For more content like this, make sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.